on to the second example that I want to talk about, and this is roan antelope. It's the second largest antelope in Africa, second to the eland. Traditionally, 6 subspecies were recognized, which are shown in the different shades of grey there. And in the late 1990s, a lot of these animals were brought into South Africa from West Africa, but under permit. So they legally came into South Africa. At that point in time, after they were here, sort of the horse had bolted, but these West African animals are here, and then all of a sudden people turned around and said, but should they be here, are they not different? At that point, we started a genetics study, and we included animals from across their range. So the arrows essentially indicate the localities where we included animals from. And what you can see is that the genetics essentially group them into 2 groups, or 2 evolutionary significant groups. A Central, East, and Southern Africa group in the blue, and then the West African group. Now, remember, there are already a lot of these West African animals under permit in South Africa. What do we do now? At that point in time, and this was in 2004, there were about 70 of those West African animals, and we knew exactly where they were and who had them. And the permit conditions at that point was then changed to say that you can have them, but you can't sell them. Imagine the surprise in 2010 when we found out that people had actually sold these West African animals on auction. So you went to an auction, you bought a roan, oh, it's nice and cheap, it's a West African animal, and you never knew it. So at the moment today, we don't really know or fully understand the extent of this hybridization. What we know is that the West African animals are very, very different. They really shouldn't be here, and we shouldn't allow full integration with our southern animals. So we have some options available. We can say we don't want any of these West African animals, and we're simply going to shoot them, cull them, hunt them. On the other side of the spectrum, we can say we don't care, and let's just open the gates. And somewhere in the middle, we can say, but we will actually allow these hybrids to be back crossed to pure southern animals, and in 4 or 5 generations, they should be relatively pure again. The bottom line is, we have to make a decision soon. And what's not happening at the moment is we're not making a decision. Everybody's just discussing it. So under the alien invasive species regulations, the regulations actually do allow for hybrids. It's not a desired situation, but it does allow for hybrids under permit. And we also have to make these decisions based on what we know about roan antelope in South Africa. Do we have a lot of them? Are the numbers high? Then we don't care. We can remove these West African animals. But if the numbers are quite low, we need to carefully think about taking out 50% of our population. And then, of course, the reality check is that roan are actually doing much better outside protected areas than inside protected areas. So there's probably around 1,000 roan, maybe a little bit more, on game farms. There's 19 if you look at the maps in Kruger, but the number is closer to 9. In years, Kruger have not been able to breed their roan. They actually have a camp, an enclosure where they keep these animals, and they just can't get them to breed. So roan is actually doing much better outside of protected areas than inside protected areas. And when faced with such dilemmas, unfortunately, conservation agencies often talk the situation to death, which is what they are doing at the moment, or they redirect their attention in some other to lesser problems. And one of those lesser problems are the color variants. So there's a lot of debate at the moment about these color variants and whether it's natural or not natural, and whether we are losing our genetic diversity. The prices on these color variants are incredibly high. Here is a copper blesbuck, which sold last year for 900,000 rand. If you look at wildebeest, a normal plain run-of-the-mill wildebeest is about 2,500 rand. If you're lucky enough to have a golden wildebeest, remember these are just recessive alleles or recessive color variants that are actually expressed because people select for them. They keep them separate. The lions are not hunting them. If you have a golden wildebeest, that can set you back about 550. And if you have a king wildebeest, 4.5 million. I'm sure all of you read the newspapers towards the end of last year where Cyril Ramaphosa actually sold 3 impala, or white-flanked impala, for 28 million. 3 impala, there's 150,000 of these things in Kruger. 3 of them for 28 million.
The University of Johannesburg. Rethink, reinvent.